Hey guys, Kirk here, and thank you for joining me on a new video on the channel. This video is going to be the third episode of our Asset Master Material series. In this video in particular, we're going to be building up the logic for our UV tiling for our master material, which we want to give the artist full control over the tiling of their texture on any mesh that they're using. So this could be just UV scaling or texture scaling or scaling the texture on the mesh singly or on each axis. We could also give him the opportunity to pan the texture across the X and Y and also set the pivot point for our texturing and rotation. We'll add rotation in there as well. So yeah, that's what we're going to do today. If this is your first time here in this series, I would highly recommend you watch the series from the start. This is only the third episode in. The first one I go over why and how we're going to build this master material, and in the second one we built the foundations of our logic, which is here, which that can be used on Quixel assets. As you can see, I've built a bit of a scene up since the last video. This is just, let's just say, it's just a bit of eye candy while we're working on these meshes here. I've got a preview mesh here which is shipped with the Unreal Engine. I've got a cube and a sphere. The cube and the sphere can be gotten in the shapes. If you want to use this preview mesh, just open up your content drawer like this, click on all. If you're not seeing the engine folder, come over to the settings on the right hand side, click that and then click show engine content. We'll click all again and just type in the search bar SM_matte, and you'll see there we've got the SM_matte preview model, is it, or mesh, that's it. You just simply click and drag it into your scene. It's very good using these for testing out UVs. Okay, so like I said, we built up this logic, our foundation if you like, in the last video. We built this up, this small bit of UV logic where we could give the artist the options to choose landscape cards or texture cards. We're going to copy this, left control and C, and we're going to start building up on this logic in its separate function. So what I want to do is come back to here, we'll just cross that off. We'll come to Masters, Materials, Mesh Master, go to Functions, and in here I'm going to create our tiling UVs function, but I'm going to give them their own folder, UV tiling, like so. I'm going to open this folder up, our UV tiling folder. I'm going to right click and go to Materials and Material Function. I'm going to use my naming convention, which is KM, Kirk Materials. We're going to call this UV tiling logic. This is the same workflow as our foundations material function. So like I say, go back and watch the series from the start. It's highly recommended. I'm going to duplicate this, left control and D, and I'm going to press right on the arrows, go to the end and get rid of logic and call this params. Deleted dash. Okay. And so basically this logic function is going to sit in our params function, but we'll do that at a later stage. Okay, so we're going to open this up. Just going to sort this out so we have a bit of room to work with. I'm not going to use a sphere mesh for this. I'm going to use the square mesh like this. So I'm going to click anywhere on the graph, press left control and V, and copy them, that bit of logic what we used before. To do this properly, I am going to use the UV texture, which is also shipped with the engine. I'm going to come back to all and type it here, just type UVs capital, and I'm going to click on texture here. If you've not got this button here, just come to the drop down menu, add an asset filter, click on it and click texture there. You've got all these to choose from as well. As you can see, I've got all these switches. So I clicked on texture. If you scroll down, you've got a TUV Viz texture. I think it's visualization. I'm just going to simply click and hold and drag that in there. If you're not seeing this texture in your engine content as well as the normal content, then jump on the Discord. I'll put this texture in the Discord as well. Jump on the Discord, verify yourself in the rules section of the Discord, and you'll see all the channels, and look for my category, which is Kirk, and then there'll be a little chat called downloadables, and I'll put this texture in there. Okay, so moving on. With the knowledge of this, what we're talking about, with this build we're going to do here, I do expect you to have a little bit of understanding how UVs work. Like we all know, UVs start at the top left of our mesh and work across. As you can see, it's 1 there, it goes to 8, and then down 8. So I would expect a bit of knowledge with that. If you're not sure, I'd recommend going on the Unreal documentation and checking it out. Okay, so like I said, I want to give our artists full control. They've already got control here for landscape chords and your standard texture chords. But like I said, I'm going to build off that. So I'm going to drag these out. Before we move on, actually, if you've not got this build and this is still your first video and you don't really want to start the series over, just pause the video, and these are called input functions. Right click, just type input. What they're called function inputs. Just type input functions and copy these. You can see it's a static bool scalar. Scalar parameter, they can be changed in input type. Like I said at the beginning of the video, I don't really want to have to go through all this, so go and check out the whole series. Okay, enough with that. Let's have a look here. So, we've got this asset UV scale. This is more like our master scale. I'm going to hold left alt and click on there and get rid of that noodle. And we're going to keep this for later because we will use it. But with that being said, as you can see, this is an asset UV scale, so you can increase and decrease the value to increase and decrease the amount of times that texture is displayed on one side. But I want full control, the X and Y axes. So I'm going to drag off our B input of our multiplier and just type append. Get the pen vector in here. You'll see we get an error, but that's fine. It's because there's no input. Okay, so we're going to draw off this A of the append vector and type input to get a function input. We're going to leave it at a scalar parameter, and we're going to call this UV texture scale -x. I did have a comment on one of my videos, and he asked me, why do I use dashes? Now, if I duplicate this, if I come here, now look closely if you can, I'll zoom the video in actually, you'll see that I've got UV texture scale X, and imagine if all of these had an underscore, like so. Now, for me, that doesn't look right. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't look right for me. I prefer these dashes. It's just my workflow. But yeah, he did ask in the comments of one video. I can't remember which video it is. But anyway, moving on. We're going to change this from scale X to scale Y. And put that in there. And now with this, don't worry about this. It's because we've got no value in this input. We're going to change this to use preview value. And we're going to press 1 and get a constant 1 vector for each one. And we'll put a 1 in there for each input. And just drag them into the preview. And you'll see our textures come back to life. Okay, so what this is going to do, like I say, it's going to scale up on the x-axis. Right, so you'll see them numbers just shrinking just on the x-axis, like so. So if I put a 5 in there, it goes all weird, like so. But if I go in the other one on the y-axis and put a 5 in there, and now, imagine with the state that it's in now, this is, imagine you have one texture like this. So you've imported a rock texture. That rock texture is going to be displayed in 5 areas on one face. And it's going to be 5 across and 5 down. So yeah, that's that. The scaling is fine. I'm going to set them both back to 1. What do I need from here? What should we have from here? I'm going to get an add node in. I'm going to add the ability to pan. I'm simply going to duplicate these actually. I'm just going to change this from scale to pan. Just get rid of that _1. Do the same for the Y. Just put this pan _1. Delete that. Okay. So now we've got this. We'll just throw this in the add node. We'll throw that into that false statement of our switch parameter. And now you can see it's doing nothing, but if I get on the X and just come across a little bit, you'll start seeing now that 1's appearing there. So essentially we're moving this up a little bit. Now this side is this side of the texture. It's just panning it across to the left of our X axis. We'll just do it a little bit more. You'll see that's moving along. And that is working just fine. It's exactly what we wanted. If I put a 1 in there, and in here, maybe if I put a 2, it'll be the same, yeah. Maybe if I put a 1.5, should be halfway. And there you go. And now we've got the ability to pan our texture on the X-axis, and we normally say the Y-axis, but it is more like the Z-axis, but we'll stick for Y for common abilities. Okay, so that's that set up. What I want to do now is add a rotator. So rotator, I'm going to use a custom rotator. We're going to throw this into the UVs like that. Rotation center. Now you could simply hold 2 on the keyboard. Now the best way I could describe this is, imagine how we've built this logic for the X and Y axes here. This is expecting a vector 2. Well, if you hold 2 on the keyboard and left click, you'll get a constant vector 2. And what this is telling me, like if I put in there and here a 0.5 on the scale and a 0.5 on that scale, you'll see now that our squares have gone from 1 to 4 and then 1 to 4. If I put the X back on 1 and the Y back on 1, you'll see we've gone from 1 to 8 and 1 to 8. So if I put 1.5 on the X and Y axes, that's telling me there that our X is right bang in the middle, and this Y vector, or Y axis at 0.5, is right bang in the middle. So we've gone from 1 to 4, from 1 to 8. So we're bang in the middle now. This bottom right hand corner of our square is bang in the middle. So that's how, straighten that back up, and that is how this rotation center works. So in here, in the red and green channels, which is more or less our X and Y channel, if I put in here 0.5 and then 0.5 in there and drag that into our rotation center, this is now telling our UVs that this is smack bang in the center, in the middle. So if I put these back to 1, sorry, I'm just trying to describe this the best I can. If I put this back to 1, you'll see there we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the line in between 4 and 5, you come down until this line in between 4 and 5, which is smack bang in the middle. So if I put that there, this rotation is going to rotate in the middle. Let's just display this with a constant 1 vector here. If I drag that into the rotation angle and then just fire this quickly in the false statement, you'll see our texture is the same, but I can rotate this a little bit. And this now is rotating in the center of our mesh, like so. And that is basically how the rotation center works. That does look a little off, but not too much. But it's still, the ability's there. Now, it's all well and good having that, but I do want our artists to be able to move this pivot point if they want. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy this. Should duplicate all this, like so. And you could simply do this the same way if you want. On here, we'll change the scale to rotation. Leave it on X. Rotation pivot X. If I just highlight all of this, left control and C, copy that, drag it into here, left control and V, just change that X for a Y. Bit easy. Let's pull the append node out, and that would simply go into there. Now you'll see that if I rotate this, it'll be all funny. And the reason for that is because of this value here. I've got 1 and 1. If I set both these values to 0.5, like we did with the vector 2, 0.5, this rotation will now go back in the middle. And like I say, that is giving our artists the ability to rotate their texture based off that pivot. So if I put 1 in here, I put a 0, you'll notice this pivot point is going to change. Just do it a little bit. We're doing it from down here now. So I've got a 0.5 down, which is halfway, and then a 1 which is fully across. So it's right over there, this pivot point. And you'll see that this is basically going around in a big circle like this. Just a big circle it's rotating on. Right, so, okay, so we'll leave that there. I'm going to drag this custom rotator up here. We're going to tidy up a little bit here, guys. We'll drag this over. I'm not going to tidy up just yet, because I do want to have some static switches in here. I'm going to set this one to 0.5. I do want it as a default in the center. It's always good to start like that. Rotation angle, I'm going to drag off here and type input and get a function input to scale the parameter. And we're going to call this UV rotation amount. Like so. Use the preview. Let's check all these. Uncheck and check it again. That means all these are now set to preview. Just drag that up here like this. Put this here for now. So what I want to do now is to, at the minute we're okay there with that. We've got full control over our texture is going to be displayed on our mesh, both on the X and Y. But not every one of our artists are going to want this kind of control. So it's good, like we've done here with the static switch, it's good to build up off what the logic that we built here. It's good to build up and give our artists full control on whether they want to use this kind of control. So we're just going to implant a load of static switches here. For one, I'm going to start with this one here. So we're going to right click and get a static switch. And what this static switch is going to do, if you've not seen one before, we just enable or disable, give it a true or false statement. So if it's true, whatever we plug in here is going to work. And if it's not true, the false will kick in. And I shall show you how it works, just like this. So we're going to plug this append into true, and this will go into the B of our multiply. And we're going to come back and get this. We'll put this here. We'll drag this into the false. Even though that does look a little untidy to me, I'm going to put it like this. And now that's looking a little bit more neater. Okay, so we're going to drag off this value, and we're going to type input again, get a function input, and we're going to call this enable, sorry I had to think then guys, enable X, Y texture scale. Okay, We'll preview this as well. And drag that in here. Just going to get this static bool here and duplicate that. If you've not got one of these, just simply right click and type bool. And you want that static bool, not the parameter, just the bool itself. And you'll get this. Well, we'll leave it there, I'm going to use it. Okay, we just drag that into the preview there. Okay. So what this is saying now, if we enable X and Y texture scale, then we're going to get these. If we're not, we're going to fall back to this. Does that make sense? Okay, we're going to do the same here. We highlight that, and highlight that. I'm going to left control and D, duplicate that. I'm going to get this. Oh gosh, we're stuck under there. Put these here, put this here, put the appending true, and then that'll go in the A of the add. What should we call this? Enable texture. We'll get rid of this. We'll put panning like so. We can get rid of all this X, Y. Enable texture panning. That seems like a good true statement. Okay, so if we don't want it, we could just simply use that, couldn't we? No, because that will affect the adders. Or no, we don't want to do that. Well, we can simply just not use anything, and to do that we can hold one on the keyboard, get a vector 1 parameter constant, and just drag that into false. So with a 0 value on this switch statement, if it's false, it doesn't do anything, which is understandable. Okay, so we're going to line this up a bit, get it all nice and straight. Okay, so that's that. I'm going to do the same for our pivot. I'm going to copy these. Oh wait, there. I had the spare one, didn't I? I'm going to copy this, duplicate, and this could call this change. Good if I spell it right. Change pivot location. So that's set to preview. We're going to drag that in there. It's going to be false. A true statement in there. And what I want as a default is just the 0.5 and 0.5. So if I hold 2 on the keyboard and left click and change these values of the red and green channel to 0.5 and 0.5 and just plug that into false. So whenever our artist is deciding to rotate, they're going to rotate off the standard center point, otherwise they could change it here. So that's going to go in rotation center. Drag this out a bit. I'm going to put a pin in there, guys. So just drag this up one. Like so. Okay. Whew. This is a lot of work, this. Let's move this up. I do like things to be neat and tidy. Oh wait there, I'll drop that down a minute actually. Okay, rotation and mounts. We can leave that, we don't need a switch there, but we do need a switch in front of this custom rotator. I highlight these, so just duplicate these, and that can go in the value. This could be enable texture rotation, like so. And if we are true in this statement, we'll do that. And if we're false, we can just simply drag that add node in there. Let's put this underneath. Okay, so let's run through this logic here, what we've done. So this could simply go in there like that. What we're doing here now, we've got a switch here. It's asking us, do we want to enable rotation? And if it does, then it falls back to this custom rotator, and then the pivot point and the rotation amount. If not, it will fall back to the add node, which is our texture panning, but we can also enable texture panning individually. And then if that's false, it just does nothing. And then we can have enable X and Y texture scale, and if not, we get the asset UV scale instead. To me, that seems fine. What I want to do now is set up our priorities. That is the full logic that I want to do in this video. Tell you what, let's make this a bit bigger. So, drag this down here. That's fine. And at the end of the day, we could enable landscape UVs. What I want to do now is this is set at 0 material UVs. I'm going to change that. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to change the material UVs to 10. I'm going to duplicate this. And we're just going to get material UV switches. So, and this is going to be set at 0. So we're going to separate our bool switches from our parameters. So I want my bools at the top, which start at set priority 0, and then these are set at priority 10. If you're unsure about this, like I say, go and check my last video out where I do go in detail about using material switches like this, but otherwise we'll be fine. So what I want to do now is, like I say, start with the switches, which is 0, so we're going to start from 1, and this is going to be what it's already 1. Enable, no, I won't set that to 1. I'll leave it for now. Enable X and Y texture scale. I don't think this really matters. This could be 2. No, it doesn't really matter. 3. This could be 4. And this one will be a set priority of 5. And what this means now is under this, which is set priority 7, it's going to work after that from 0, then 1 is a set priority, 2 is a set priority, 3, 4 and 5. Okay, so now we're using materials UVs switch, and this is set priority 10, so we're going to work from there. The UV scale is going to be 11, then X is going to be 12, and then the Y is 13. And then we are going to go to 14, then 15, then this one is going to be 16, one's going to be 17, and this one is going to be 18. Now I've made a mistake because I wanted this one to be under this one. No, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Right. So that one is 18, and this one can be 19. Right, so we're going to hit apply and save. Everything's fine there. Apply and save. And then I shall close that off. And we shall get rid of this, go to masters, let's get rid of texture, materials, mesh master, Go to functions, UV tiling. We're going to open this parameters function. We're simply going to, this logic function that we've just been working on, just simply drag that in there, and you'll see now all our functionality is in that one function, and we can just simply output that one like so. The good thing about this, guys, is this could be our master logic for our master UVs. And in here now, if we want, like later on, there is a couple more things I want to showcase, maybe in the next video, where I can enable kind of parallax occlusion mapping or bump offset and all this more advanced stuff. And I can just do that in here and just simply duplicate this output and put them in here. That's the power of material functions. Okay, so I'm going to quickly go through these guys. I'm going to speed the video up. If you've never seen this before, then I would highly recommend watching the previous video, or I'll just showcase one. What I'm going to do, I'm going to right click it and promote parameter. I'm going to press right on the keyboard. You can see at the end of this blue highlighted text, we've got a set of brackets with a B inside. I just simply press right arrow on the keyboard and then delete them brackets. Do that. And it's that simple. So yeah, I'm going to speed the video up now, guys, and just go through these dead quickly. Okay. Okay, guys, as you can see, I've now done that. If you was unsure about the switches, the switches, you can see here I built the material UVs, the material UV switches, and this just separates them so they look all neat and tidy. What I am going to do, I'm sorry about this, guys, but I do not want this to be extremely long by doing mundane tasks like this, but I shall showcase this first one. We're going to leave that, the default is false, and on here I'm going to give it a group. Now I do know that material instances start at 0, just like the UV index and the set priority and all that. It does do the same thing, the material instances. So for this I'm going to want a 0, 0, 0 actually, then dash UV switches, and now I've set the group for this particular bool, and it's going to be UV switches, or I could change this to UV tiling switches. And what I can do, like the set priority, when we was back in the logic, where we set the priority of each individual input, we can do the same here. As you can see, set priority. So I'm going to choose now which ones I want in order to display first, but I can just highlight them all and change that group to UV tiling switches, and now all these are in that same group. But I'm going to, and this one is 00 dash UV tiling switches. I'm going to set this group as 01 UV tiling params, like that, yeah. And then I can simply highlight all these and then change this group to UV tiling params. Okay, so like I said, I'm going to speed the video up, and I'm just going to set these parameters and these bools in the actual order that I want them to be displayed in the material instance. Okay, so now that is done, I've set these groups up. I don't know if you've seen in that little quick part that I changed this name from change pivot location to change rotation pivot location. It's a mouthful, I know, but the artist has to understand what is happening. And that is it for the parameters side. I'm going to apply this. I'm going to click anywhere in the graph and just choose expose to library and hit apply again, sorry, and then save. And I'm going to come to my master logic here. I'm going to right click, we'll type KM, and you'll see we've got UV tiling params. So, and now all that logic that we just built throughout the duration of this video is all in this little function. So let's test it. So I'm going to right click and click and hold, put that in the results, and I am getting an error. Cannot cast from larger float 3 to float 2. Sorry guys, this texture sample is a float 3, red, green and blue. This is a vector 3 or float 3. If I come to my logic, cannot cast from larger type float 3 to a smaller type float 2. A texture sample input on the UVs is a vector 2 for U and V, or X and Y, which is a vector 2. And in my logic, I'm outputting the RG and B, which is a vector 3. So if I delete that texture sample, just put this in the output, like so, hit apply and save. I'm going to hit apply there and save. And now our errors have gone. Yeah, that was a little mistake. So I'm going to hit apply with this. I'm going to come back to our scene. Just let our shaders compile. Just give it a second. And now let's save. I'm just going to save this real quick. We're just going to do a quick test. We're going to open our material instance, and there you go. Right, what I'm going to do. Oh wait, let's just get that. There we go. Okay, so our switches are right and our tiling parameters are right. I'm gonna put some textures in here. Just gonna get an arbitrary texture. I'm gonna come to all, just type brick. Brick is a good texture to start yourself off with for testing, especially UVs. I'm just going to highlight texture here. There we go. So I just want a albedo and normal. Like that, there's one. That says roughness, brick rough H. And where's the normal for that? All three actually. Oh yeah, there you go. So if I drag that into the albedo, and then get that normal and drag that into there. Okay, just let that update. I think that's what it needs to do. Oh wait there. Put one in there. There we go. Okay, let's just try and quickly test this now guys, because I think this video is a little bit long. As you can see, we've got 00 UV tiling switches, that's our group name, and 01 UV tiling parameters, these are the options. If I come on to enable texture scale and then enable it there, you'll see we get these parameters. And the set, it's gone back to just white because there's no values. I would have to come into our params and go through all of these and set up the default value. But I'm not going to do that because I think this video is quite long already. So we have got, I'm going to highlight this, just put a 1 and a 1. So our X and Y texture scale is working. Let's enable texture panning. And you'll see it'll go, it'll do nothing. I'm just going to highlight these. Let's just drag across. Look at that. Look how he rotates around that preview mesh. That's what I was saying at the beginning of the video. It's a good mesh to use that. Oh, a little bit of lag there. Okay, and there, look at that. It's beautiful. Exactly what I want. There seems to be a bit of roughness on here. It might be the texture. Pull these back to 0. 0. Okay, what's next? Enable texture rotation. Okay, so rotation amount. There you go. Great stuff. That's fine. Let's set that back to 0. Change pivot. Change rotation pivot location. If I do this, let's see if this works. So the rotation pivot is down here. So if I come across a bit and start to rotate again, yeah. If I do that now, watch the texture move. See that? That's that pivot location. And I can rotate off that. That's working fine, just fine there. Yeah, I'm going to default these so it doesn't look silly. It's working just fine, and then landscape UVs should cancel all this out and just have the landscape UVs. So put 1 in there, and there you go. I am happy with that, guys. I'm really happy with that. I'm glad how that's worked out. Like so. But yeah, I am glad, like I say, with how that's worked out. The brightness still works, as you can see. And the contrast does. There you go, that's nice. This is from the last video. So yeah, I think this video is long enough. We've added now some advanced tiling logic to our master material, in which we could just get rid of them. And now we just have the normal tiling scale. Like so. So yeah, if you found this video informative, if you like, or you've learned quite a bit of how the logic works behind the scenes of a master material, then leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It really goes a long way by boosting me to share my knowledge with you guys for free on YouTube. So show your support by subscribing and liking my videos. That'd be great. And in the next one, we're going to look at a couple more advanced features for tiling, like using parallax occlusion mapping and a basic version of triplanar mapping. Triplanar projection, sorry, on our material. So I shall see you in the next video, guys. Goodbye.